I know when a journey must come to an end. I know when to say goodbye. Feeling deep down that I will be remembered and respected forever. We have 4 months left. I will give my absolute all for this badge and for our shared goals. Eternal respect and love to Manchester United and the amazing fans of this club. Once a Red, always a Red. That was the message Casemiro posted on his personal page following the news of his departure from Manchester United at the end of the season. And just like that, another world-class player is set to leave Old Trafford. While it feels bittersweet, looking back, Casemiro has truly had a beautiful journey with the club. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. That is the iconic line delivered by Aaron Eckhart's character, Harvey Dent, in the 2008 classic The Dark Knight. It's a quote that seems to apply to so many situations in football. I used it before for Rodrigo. And now I'm using it for Casemiro, but this time, it carries a much more positive meaning. Casemiro is still pure class, even though he plays a more static role now. But he is making the right choice. He is leaving while the fans still love him, while he is still missed. Before his high salary becomes an excuse for people to complain. The word burden carries a heavy weight. It hurts the pride of a man who has won the Champions League 5 times. We all remember what happened to Bastian Schweinsteiger under José Mourinho. It was painful. Casemiro does not want to put the club in that awkward position. And he doesn't want that for himself either. By leaving now, he can secure one last contract before retiring. And he gets to experience a beautiful journey outside of Europe. So, let's look back at his 4 years at Old Trafford. Let's talk about his first season, and the destiny that brought him here. After 2 months of chasing Frenkie de Jong without success, Manchester United made a surprise pivot to another top midfielder from La Liga. Unlike the long and failed de Jong saga, the signing of Casemiro was fast and smooth. United spent £60 million to sign the 5-time Champions League winner. This was seen as a fair price for a player of such class and experience. A player no one expected to leave Real Madrid. The biggest downside was his salary of £350,000 a week. On a 4-year contract, something United viewed as an acceptable risk for a 29-year-old. However, not everyone agreed. When Casemiro joined, United was reeling from a 2-1 home loss to Brighton and a 4-0 defeat at Brentford. He was unveiled to the fans before the 2-1 home victory against Liverpool, before making his debut off the bench in a 1-0 win at Southampton. He took the number 18 shirt, a number previously worn by Bruno Fernandes and Paul Scholes, the player Casemiro admitted was his idol. The Brazilian midfielder quickly made his mark, winning the Player of the Month award in October. Casemiro scored his first goal for United with a crucial last-minute equalizer at Chelsea, before the season paused for the World Cup. He returned with disappointment after Brazil was eliminated by Croatia in the quarter-finals. But he was ready for the return of the Premier League. Casemiro formed a brilliant partnership with new signing Christian Eriksen. Together, they went on a 17-game unbeaten run. This streak was interrupted by Eriksen's injury, and Casemiro's debut season was shadowed by 2 harsh red cards against Crystal Palace and Southampton, along with a yellow card that forced him to miss the away game at Arsenal. Casemiro returned from suspension to deliver a man-of-the-match performance, helping Manchester United beat Newcastle 2-0 in the Carabao Cup final. He scored the opening goal and produced a defensive masterclass, completely neutralizing Newcastle's attacks. But the joy of the title had barely settled when United suffered a humiliating 7-0 defeat to Liverpool at Anfield. Casemiro played over 50 games in his first season, scoring a stunning bicycle kick against Bournemouth, before ending the campaign with a loss in the FA Cup final. After a successful 2022-2023 season, where Real Madrid looked like they made a mistake selling him, the 2023-2024 season turned out to be incredibly difficult for the Brazilian. Erik ten Hag tried to restructure the midfield with Mason Mount pairing with Casemiro. This tactic quickly backfired. Casemiro was overrun in the 1-0 win against Wolves in the opening game, a warning sign that the coaching staff failed to address in time. Mistakes by new goalkeeper Andre Onana caused United to be eliminated in the Champions League group stage, even though Casemiro scored 2 goals away at Bayern Munich. Amidst the chaos, Casemiro received a red card in the home loss to Galatasaray, while trying to fix an error by Onana. United only started to improve after Kobbie Mainoo exploded onto the scene in November. But by then, injuries had severely ravaged the squad. Casemiro was forced to drop back and play as a centre-back, even playing in this position during the FA Cup semi-final against Coventry. Everything began to collapse after the humiliating 4-0 defeat to Crystal Palace. Casemiro also made an error in the 1-0 home loss to Arsenal. Some pundits said Casemiro should leave top-level football before football leaves him. He did not get a chance to redeem himself, as he was left out of the FA Cup final squad without a clear explanation. Making way for Sofyan Amrabat, United won 2-1, and Casemiro's absence did not leave much regret. However, he still played an important role on the journey to the final, scoring the winning goal in the quarter-final at Nottingham Forest. But missing out on the victory at Wembley made his second trophy at United carry a bitter aftertaste. Casemiro's financially heavy contract was criticized by the new investors, but that also meant it was difficult for United to part ways with him. After considering leaving in the summer of 2024, Casemiro and the club entered their third season together. With hopes for something better, Casemiro entered the 2024-2025 season with a lot to prove. But it started terribly with a forgettable performance in the 3-0 home loss to Liverpool. United hoped Manuel Ugarte would be his replacement, while young talent Toby Collier also applied pressure. Erik ten Hag was sacked in October, and Casemiro was revived under interim manager Ruud van Nistelrooy. Van Nistelrooy built the team around the partnership of Casemiro and Ugarte. In 4 games, they won 3 and drew 1. However, the new head coach, Ruben Amorim, had a different approach. He used Casemiro and Christian Eriksen in his debut against Ipswich. It did not work, and United started the new era with a disappointing 1-1 draw. Over the next 2 months, Casemiro was gradually pushed aside. In a Europa League match against Rangers, Collier was preferred. Amorim even hinted that Casemiro could no longer handle the rigorous demands of the Premier League. However, during March and April, Casemiro regained the manager's trust. He was praised for his adaptability and tactical discipline. He ended the season as a guaranteed starter, starring in a comeback victory over Lyon. Casemiro declared the 2024-2025 season the most satisfying of his career. Because they overcame adversity, he was even recalled to the Brazil squad by his old coach, Carlo Ancelotti. United had a chance to win a third trophy, but they lost to Tottenham in the Europa League final. Casemiro was among the players who underperformed, ending the season in disappointment. Casemiro returned for preseason in great physical condition, and continued his form under Ruben Amorim. At the age of 33, he surprised the fans, becoming more important than ever. He overcame competition from Manuel Ugarte. Data showed that United always struggled whenever Casemiro was absent or substituted, proving the team had a worrying dependency on him. He also became a consistent source of goals, scoring 4 times in the first half of the season against Chelsea, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, and Bournemouth. Casemiro returned to Anfield for the first time since the 7-0 defeat, playing a huge part in an impressive 2-1 victory. But then, Ruben Amorim was suddenly sacked. Casemiro had to work with another interim coach, Darren Fletcher, who only started him in 1 of 2 games. Michael Carrick became Casemiro's 5th manager at Manchester United, and he immediately put him back in the starting lineup for the Manchester Derby. Casemiro was one of the best players in the 2-0 win over Man City, a match where United dominated, feeling like a much bigger victory. A few days later, Casemiro announced he would leave Manchester United at the end of the season, ending all the lingering uncertainty about his future. Now, the club can plan for life without Casemiro, and he will try to enjoy his final 16 matches in the Manchester United shirt. Casemiro is closing a chapter of his journey, and on the road ahead, Manchester United will have to walk without him. That will certainly not be an easy journey. In reality, Manchester United has been hunting for a world-class central midfielder for a long time. Not just now, but finding a midfielder of sufficient stature and class, according to the standards of Old Trafford, has never been simple. Better midfielders belong to bigger teams. Average midfielders are plentiful, but their level simply cannot fill the void left by the Brazilian. Therefore, this will be a new battle, an extremely difficult problem for Manchester United in the coming period. The most beautiful scenario would have been if Casemiro accepted a pay cut and stayed for one more season to mentor the younger generation. But of course, that prospect no longer exists, especially after the statements have been made. So, let's wish Casemiro good health, so he can fight with Manchester United for the remainder of this season. And who knows, maybe they can still grab a Champions League spot. If that happens, I think it would be the most beautiful parting gift for a tough-looking gentleman whose hands are so used to the feeling of lifting the Champions League trophy.